Welcome to AI Rounds, your weekly dose of AI in medicine and education.
We are your hosts, Dr. Nuria Negrão
and Dr. Morgan Leaf. Each week, we'll bring you a quick dive into the latest in artificial intelligence and how it's transforming healthcare, medical education, and medical communications.
From the tools changing how we teach, learn, and write, to breakthroughs shaping patient care. If it's new, exciting, or just plain useful, we're talking about it.
In just 10 to 15 minutes, we'll get you up to speed and maybe even spark your next big idea.
Let's make the rounds.
So we got a team of people here with us today. So there's Morgan, that you all already know. There's Alex Howson, Holly Hagan, and we actually work together. We're all medical writers, and we have a summit coming up with another two colleagues. So today we're going to be talking about the summit.
Tell us about who this summit is targeted toward.
Okay, so the summit is for early career medical writers, and we all help medical writers in their career, in different aspects of their career. So the summit is kind of like a crash course of how do you get into medical writing and different aspects of medical writing. I'm really excited about it because it will be with the format we're doing. We're running it as like a community on Slack, and every day you'll get like a little lesson, a 20-minute lesson from one of us. And then there'll be exercises and there'll be like lots of community engagement. And then you'll have like live sessions for you to ask questions. So I think it's a really cool format. We haven't tried it before, and I'm really excited about trying it out. Did I forget anything?
The recordings will be released and there'll be live Q&As. And we just wanted to bring everybody together today to give a little bit more detail about the topics they'll be talking about so folks know what they have to look forward to. So, Alex, why don't you kick us off? Tell us what you will be teaching our audience at the summit.
I'm going to be focusing on what you might think about as an academic, as a researcher, or as a clinician, maybe as a journalist, doing some kind of career pivot and thinking about maybe medical writing in general, but also continuing medical education in particular as a very specialist area within the broad umbrella of medical writing. Because I think one of the things that can be really challenging when you're making that pivot is you're stepping out of a very fixed and clear professional identity into something new. And as soon as we do that, we start to feel self-doubt, we start to second guess ourselves, and we start to think, oh, I'm going to have to do a whole bunch of credentialing in order to make this pivot and move into medical writing. And so I really want to focus on, here are some things that you can think about, some skills and competencies that you already have that are transferable to the particular specialty of continuing medical education writing. So I'm going to kind of focus on some of the things that you might already be doing as an academic, as a researcher, as a clinician, and what it looks like when you start to kind of translate those different skills into the continuing medical education niche.
And Alex, for folks who are maybe listening who are not familiar with continuing medical education, maybe they're new to medical writing, maybe they're working in another field right now, can you give us a little sort of elevator pitch about what continuing medical education writing is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a specialty area within the broad umbrella of medical writing, and it's very much focused on supporting content development for education that addresses the standards of care that all health professionals need to keep up to date on as part of their licensure, as part of their credentialing, as part of their recertification. So I'm using the term continuing medical education, but which very specifically focuses on physicians, but really I'm going to be talking about continuing education for health professionals. So every year, whether you're a nurse, a physician, a pharmacist, or other health professionals, you have to undertake some kind of continuing education and get credits for that education. Every state in the US has different requirements for how many credits, what those credits look like. But all health professionals have to kind of keep up to date. And so what we do as writers is help other professionals within the continuing education field develop and implement continuing education content that adheres to some fairly specific requirements for education to help those professionals keep up to date. So, we have to be aware of the regulatory and compliance environment that shapes the education that we help create. We have to know something about adult learning. We have to know something about assessment and outcomes frameworks, because as writers, we are working across many different aspects of developing continuing education. So that's a very potted version of what we do over here in CME.
Great. And, I'm biased, Nuria's biased, but we think it's a great field of medical writing.
We do. We surely do.
Yeah. I have another question. What is the profile of the person who would be interested in becoming a CME writer?
So what I've seen over the years, and I've been in this field for, 2 decades now, is not uncommon when you look at medical writing in general, but for CME in particular, we see people who are lifelong learners, they are problem solvers, and they want some connection to healthcare that is a little closer than somebody who might end up in regulatory writing, who's very much focused on clinical data and the regulatory framework. In CME, we're much closer to clinical practice and the experience of patients. So the kind of profile that we see in CME is someone like Morgan, who is a clinician and is using that clinical expertise to inform the writing that she does. Or someone like you, Nuria, who has a research background, who knows how to kind of rapidly synthesize the research literature, but also make that application into clinical practice and think forward toward the patient perspective and what the impact on patient care is going to be, with that education. Someone like myself, I was also a clinician many decades ago. And so we see people who want to contribute to clinical practice and patient care at several degrees of remove, rather than somebody who is really kind of excited mainly about clinical data and, the research itself. So, those are the kind of profiles that we see. So academics, researchers, clinicians are the three main groups who tend to gravitate toward, continuing education.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And shifting over to Holly. Hi, Holly.
Hello, great to be here.
Thanks for being here. Tell us what you'll be talking about at the Early Career Medical Writers Summit.
Well, my talk will mainly focus on the regulatory realities for medical copywriters. And I thought that was an important topic to choose because I feel like when it comes to healthcare advertising and pharmaceutical advertising specifically, there's a lot of questions because we're so immersed in consumer advertising and consumer ads that we think, well, I don't want to just add to that with pharmaceuticals and talk about pharmaceuticals the way people talk about shoes or the way they market cola. Like we don't do that. So I wanted to sort of like pull back the curtain and talk about the realities of medical copywriting. And yes, it is copywriting. It is for advertising and promotional purposes, but it's not a free-for-all. It's not say whatever you want to get the most prescriptions. No, we're here to help healthcare professionals learn about a product so that they can make appropriate prescribing decisions for eligible patients. So it's really not, exaggerating, lying, manipulating. That's not what we do. And so I wanted to really focus my talk on what we do as medical copywriting, and maybe that will be interesting for you to explore, because I know when I first entered the field, I didn't know what I was getting into. And while it turns out that I love it, I didn't know at the beginning. So I thought, wouldn't that be great if people could know in advance what they are getting into to help them make an informed decision going in? Yeah, so that's what my talk on regulatory realities will be about.
Holly, actually, that sounds really interesting. Like everything in medicine and in medical writing, everything is very regulated, and there are like lots of rules. But what I wanted to ask you is, you actually work a lot with new medical writers that want to get into pharmaceutical copywriting. Can you tell us a little bit of the profile of like who usually gets into this type of writing? What is it that people who are curious about it, like what is it? What is it like being a copywriter? What attracts you to it? To being a medical copywriter and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the people who get into it usually have some sort of scientific background or medical background. Maybe it's a science degree or, well, yeah, a science degree of some sort. And so they want to continue to leverage that degree in their work. And people who have also sort of self identified as having an aptitude for writing or enjoying writing. And so blending those two aspects, as with a lot of medical writing, that's really appealing to a lot of people. And what we're doing in a medical copywriting adds another layer, in my opinion, of creativity, because not only are we wanting to convey the information like clearly and concisely and compliantly, but we also want to do it in an interesting way that keeps people's attention and that can be communicated in just a few seconds, because a lot of healthcare professionals, they don't have time for extended sales calls or extended visits with reps. They have a few minutes, if they're lucky, like maybe it'll be 30 seconds. So we really focus on how do we get this information across in as short of a time as possible so that we can assist the sales reps in that way, or even with websites. And so I know for me, I came to it from a clinical research background. I've had people come into the program or come in to receive training from pharmacy backgrounds and different types of clinical research, healthcare professionals, and also people who have explored the copywriting side or technical writing. They've also come to me to learn about medical copywriting, because there's really a lot of parallels and interplay with other types of writing.
Thanks, Holly.